Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Portsmouth Coffee Talks Monday morning show. Every day we rise is a great day to be alive. And here we are again on this Monday morning, election eve. So we have our regular hosts, Leah Drake Stick, Thomas the Colonel Chapman, yours truly, Slim Overton, and some guests. And as we have our conversation, you'll see why these two guests are part of what we are part of our discussion today. So they are Mark Gildog Dig Yatrosky and Ray Anthony Smith Sr. Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing?
Good
Great.
morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, so as we start the discussion, we're going to get right into it. This is election eve, and we want to talk about, you know, tomorrow's election and what we think our opinions are, what to expect. So, Colonel, I want you to start off the conversation. But before we do that, I saw something where uh, the election results are. Let me let Ray back in here. The election results throughout the state are expected to be delayed a little bit because some of the Northern Virginia races, have a lot on their ballots. So we might be a little longer waiting. Now, Hampton Roads, we might get some early returns and might know what's going on, but and that'd be good to know if we were successful here in the Hampton Roads. But as far as the state, and knowing exactly how we did, as far as in the Senate and the House, we need the House of Representatives. We can't let both houses belong to Republicans in all three branches. So uh, it might be a late night, waiting for those results. But anyway,
Yes.
Colonel, go ahead and then start us off with the discussion this morning, please.
Well, yes, you are correct. You cannot let either one of the two branches that are up for election, either Senate and they already own the House, and especially with the new gerrymandering, people need to come out if they are owned by if the Republicans or the Confederate Party gets all three branches, it will change this state forever. It will change this state forever. Uh, I will tell you personally, this has been one of the most negative and racially tinged and racist campaigns I've ever seen in my life. Uh, the Republicans or the campaign that Emily Brewer is running is called Clint Jenkins with pictures that don't even look like him or is not him, and it's called him a criminal. Is beyond repel. She doesn't belong to be in society, not less being in a representative for anybody in this in the Commonwealth. It is a shame for what she has done, and I have to call her out as what she is a racist and will do nothing and nothing but lie. And so I'll open it up for them. So I got that opening salvo. So
All right, Mark.
what say you, Ray?
Well, I think you um, phrased it well. Everything as usual is going to be determined by the turnout, and that can make it dismal. Considering the recent primaries, it was the outcome. Would have and could have been different, but things happen the way they do. So hopefully the way a lot of people I know voted, early this time. So you won't see a whole lot of people, line up at the polls, and especially in some areas. But it's always the determining factor as to how many come out, and the apathy that's still out there, where a lot of people say, well, they're not voting because it doesn't make a difference, or they're not voting because it it really doesn't matter that politicians going to do whatever they want to do. It's just a cop out. When you don't vote, I don't care if there's not a candidate you don't like. when you don't vote, you vote against yourself. Especially when you look at partisan politics and the way things can be set up to set us back many years.
Well, you know what, Ray, and I'll make one comment when you talk about the early voting, and we look at when people say my vote does not count. You have to look at what they are doing to you and the people that are in charge. And I'm talking about the Confederate Party led by, in this state, Governor Youngkin. You look at early voting, they decrease the amount of polling stations open this year because they are in charge. So that's why it's going to reflect in not as many polling stations, meaning suppressing the vote. And you see where they close those voting stations, early voting stations, to where? In minority and Democratic areas. That should tell you something. And if that doesn't wake you up, especially for those who are uninformed, that don't have the wherewithal to say they're doing something to me, something's wrong. Something's wrong.
Absolutely. And
yes.
With the, you mentioned the gerrymandering also, and that's really is going to affect it in a lot of areas. You look at when you look at especially referring to Portsmouth and the 17th, and how they pull out the four largest, African American districts with the largest numbers of voters. Like Grove and Churchland High School and Churchland Middle, and then Churchland Primary, and moved those over to the 17th, and then they split up Cavalier Manor in half. So it has really been set up, for a wave to hit us if folks don't come out.
Yeah.
And Ray, I think some of that is working to their advantage in some ways because they have a lot of people confused, especially, in Cavalier Manor and Churchland as well, who they're used to voting for certain people, and then they early voting and see different names up there and are not voting at all because they don't see the person they thought that they were voting for,
Yes.
and it's good. And give Benet credit to people she's run into that she had to explain, please still vote anyway, because this person is not in your district anyway. But in the beginning, she found people were saying, well, I'm not going to vote, or they wrote in names or wrote in the person names. So, whatever their goal was, it's kind of working, and hopefully enough information got out to those people to know, that especially the ones that might go tomorrow, to know that it's the difference in who they might be voting for. And a lot of the people, the names that are actually there, they don't really know them that well. Like Clint Jenkins in Churchland, and Hayes in Cavalier Manor. A lot of people know them, but a lot of people don't know them because these guys were normally Chesapeake people, Chesapeake politicians and Suffolk politicians. Yeah.
Right. Well, I can say Hayes, Delegate Hayes did show himself out here in Cavalier Manor, and then the fact that he works for Portsmouth too, in the city government, but he was out here at a lot of events.
Yeah, it goes back to early voter education, because it should have been started, at the beginning of the time when they said we're going to change these districts, and how they changed the districts should have been fought in court anyway, and which wasn't fought and won at the courts. And so that's another fallacy of that's why we are here today.
Yes, that was another case where that it could have voting could have controlled that, because once the Republicans got the control, they changed the way redistricting was done, which was normally done by the people in the legislature, but it gave the governor opportunity to handpick people.
Yep, exactly.
To make those changes, and they did exactly what they wanted to do.
Exactly.
And we can change that if we get out there and vote and make those changes, make sure the Democrats have control.
And the main thing is that we have to realize that the nation is watching Virginia. They want to see what's going to happen in Virginia. Virginia and Ohio are the states that they're watching now to see how we're going to vote and whether we're going to continue with the thoughts and the way that Trump has done things. If you don't vote, or if you vote for those on the other side, what you're doing, you're giving a thumbs up to the Trump administration. You're saying that it's all good. You don't care about a woman's right. You don't care about LBGQT rights. Um, you just don't care about people rights at all if you're going to vote on the other side. And the amazing thing is, like you said, people don't even know who's running. I'm surprised even as of yesterday, I was talking to people and they don't have a clue as to who's running for office. So, I mean, and like Colonel said, voter education should have started a long time ago. It's a little late now to try to educate these individuals as to who's running in what district. They are confused. They're confused as to where they are to vote and who they're voting for. So it was a master plan. It was a master plan, but I do understand that those 39,000 folks that they took off the rolls, they put back on the rolls. So hopefully they know that they can vote now. So it's just a massive confusion here in Virginia.
Well,
Yeah,
Leah, you talk about the 39,000 that were taken off and put back on,
Mm-hmm.
allegedly put back on.
Allegedly put back on.
Yes, allegedly put back on.
Yes.
You can't believe a thing that they said. And then they'll come back after the election is over and says, "Oh, we made a mistake. We only put 39 instead of 39,000."
Yes.
So
It's bad. They're in a bad
it's just
place.
they're corrupt.
hey,
They don't
Mark,
believe in democracy when you do things like that.
Mark, I want to ask you a question. And with Colonel mentioned early on that with all the negative ads that we've seen, you think people really know what the hot button issues are, should be simple. It's abortion and gun rights. There are two of the big hot issues that the Democrats are concerned about, one and two, and it's not something that the Republicans have high on their list. You think people really know what those hot button issues are you know, eh, with all the distractions of the ads of the negative ads that are out there that are taking people in another direction as opposed to what the actual issues are.
And again, you and I had a conversation before the show started. I'm a big believer that being a voter is insufficient. You must be an informed voter, which is that's always been part of your mantra. Be aware, be informed, and be involved. So if people come to the polls and they expect to vote by reflex, democracy's on shaky footing. We really have to keep up with the issues, and it's always a kind of scary time when we have our once every 4 year every seat in the General Assembly election, which this is. It doesn't overlap with the statewide elections. It doesn't overlap with the national elections. It's all our show here in Virginia. So if people come or people don't come, which has been the big problem, um, then it's really a crapshoot as to how this is all going to shake out. And as previously stated by folks in this room, this virtual room, we cannot afford to have the legislative and executive branches be in the hands uh, of the Trump Republicans. Governor Youngkin, to me, I always call him Governor Trumpkin because he's kind of Trump light. He's sort of Trump if Trump had any intelligence. He's a smooth operator, but he's selling snake oil. I've seen some of the ads that the Trumppublicans have done on abortion, and it looks like, oh, we're just making a little fine tuning here. No, we'll be Mississippi if the legislature shifts to Trumpublican majorities.
And this goes to everybody. With the negative ads and everything like that. You think that the candidates or the Democratic Party is pushing back or has pushed back strong enough to to put a dent in some of these ads. Because these ads playing repeatedly, they're sticking people's mind, and whether it's true or not. If certain elements of the ads are true, they should be addressed, properly in order for that to stick in people's minds as well. So do you think we've been effective as far as addressing these ads?
No, not at all. When they stoop low, we have to go lower. You can't take this BS that Michelle put out. We go higher. That people don't believe. When they hit you in the jaw, you've got to hit them in the jaw, each side of the jaw, and hit them in the chest, and got to knock them down. I looked at some of these ads, and the one with Mason versus what's his name, Fagans. I'm sorry,
Mason versus
Mason. Who's Mason?
Diggs.
Yeah, Mason's
Diggs.
versus the
Diggs.
Yeah, Diggs.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Diggs. I saw an interview with him, and Mason was sitting in there and with a reporter. Didn't call him out. He has a commercial talking about where Diggs, who was an ex-sheriff or is a sheriff on the state house, talking about and supporting white supremacy. And then he backs it up in the other press and saying, I was trying to support this Second Amendment. You need to run the ads with him and his Klansmen and all the other people that he supports white supremacists. You have to go down in the gutter and tell it like it is. You can't beat around the edges with this stuff. You cannot beat around the edges.
And you got to watch for these keywords they use too. He's one of us.
Yeah, he's one of
us. They use words like that. You know what they talk. He's one of us.
Yeah.
That's that black candidate running in Virginia Beach. The ad says he's one of us. So what they telling you? He's part of that plan. But the sad thing is they said that only 600,000 Virginians have voted in early voting, as opposed to, I think last time it was like over a million folks who voted early.
Yeah, the early voting is down.
And also there's an uptick in the Republicans voting. So we're gonna have to be careful. The Republicans are voting, but we're not voting. We got all kinds of thoughts and ideas and reasons why we shouldn't vote. And I tell you what, we're going to be in bad shape if you don't get out there and vote.
Yeah, because
go ahead.
We've been talking a lot on these shows and Mark on his shows, and Mark, addressing certain things and all of us, but we're not running. But, so a lot of this, I think, should have been coming from the candidates. And that groundwork, you never can fail with that groundwork, getting out there to the people. And I think, it's good. And I'll just say this, it's good having get out to vote rallies. But when you're having a rally and you're preaching to the choir, I have to question, the effectiveness of that.
Yeah.
When you're having a rally less than a week before the election,
and a rally less than a week that's not in a place where many people can come, So I'm not putting down totally having a rally, because that can get your people that support you riled up and get them out there. But I think it was a little late. I think it was, like I said, preaching to the choir, people that are already in your corner, and kind of not reaching those people that Benet was running into every day, coming up to vote, early vote, that didn't know, they wanted to vote, but were confused about what was really going on with the redistricting, and what they should do. That kind of education should have been out there earlier.
Yeah.
And that's my opinion.
Yeah,
But hopefully that won't be something that's going to hurt us to the point. Okay, I was checking Ray again. Hurt us to the point where Ray is having a problem with his connection there. So hopefully we can get him back on. But hurt us to the point when we tomorrow, at the polls. I'm going to be hoping that people when they went in there and voted, I'm going to be hoping that after they were informed that they did the right thing, and they're going to come out and vote citywide or Hampton Roads wide more than 40%. I mean, this is not a primary. This is a big time election.
this is the real deal.
This is the real deal. And if somehow we get a tie in either one of those houses, well, in the Senate, you know who has the power to break that tie.
Mhm.
Yeah, Miss Hairdo does.
Yes, and Miss Hampton. But
But the thing is, and I look at it in a historical fact, is that long before, when we were enslaved, and when women could not vote, we go over time with the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, and they had a constitutional amendment that women could vote. People died for us to give us the chance to exercise the only power that we have as individuals to either change the system or support the system. And for those who do not vote, then you really don't deserve to even be in this society. I'll go that far. If you look at other countries, I've been in other countries that gotten the right to vote. I look and when I went to Iraq, when they had the first voting, and when they were allowed the people to vote for the first time, they were in the 80s and 90th percentile of people who were voting. But look at this trifling country that doesn't dare. And I say it's trifling because we don't get out and vote, because you say it doesn't affect us. But then you will complain when you don't get such and such government services, or you don't have a job, or you don't have this or that. And then you complain. You know what? You deserve to be in the back of the bus, because you didn't go out there and take 20 minutes to go out there, actually 10 minutes in early voting, to go out there and exercise your vote.
So if I can springboard off that, Colonel, you and I are veterans.
Yes.
Yeah, are you a veteran?
who?
Who's a veteran?
Yes.
Say what now?
Anyway,
Ray.
No, you're right. Just you and Colonel.
so as
Ray and I
veterans,
were in the Boy Scouts.
Right. Explorers.
as veterans, we have people come up and thank us for service, and I'm appreciative of people who are appreciative. But to me, there are really three pillars of citizenship. Service, if you are needed, if you are called, service in the military, that is. But there are two other forms of service that every citizen has the opportunity to provide. One of them is voting as an informed voter, and the other is serving on a jury, because trial by a jury of your peers is an essential element of, of justice. And when people say, "Oh, I don't have the time, I don't want to be bothered," um, you are undercutting the foundation of democracy in this country. So Veterans Day on the horizon there, many ways. There are three main ways that every citizen can serve.
Mark, it's interesting to you talk about the jury system. And for those who don't want to be on a jury, but on the flip side, when they end up on the other side, needing a jury to either to get them to
A jury of their peers.
a jury of their
Their
peers,
peers. Yeah.
their views change all of a sudden. So it's interesting.
Yes.
It really brought up, if you take a look at how young people, all of us developed, one or two things happen in our lives. Our parents, we had parents, and they voted, they believed in voting, or later on, something happened in our lives, as young people and people in general, to springboard us or to inspire us to initiate, however you want to put it, and it's a personal thing. It's my children. They've always seen me involved in politics, so it's kind of inspired them over the years to kind of keep in touch, but then they still have to fit it in, and that's a big problem with a lot of them, and folks that don't really keep up. They don't keep up with current events. They don't watch news. Then you hear the old thing, well, it's so negative, but and just like the y'all were talking earlier about the negative campaigning, that's a sign of desperation. That's a
Mm-hmm.
sign when they go negative like that, then they feel like they're losing, or they want to springboard, way ahead. So there's a lot of motivating factors that dictate politics and people's behavior, and that's one thing, that I know I've always, in all my years of running, I tried to definitely stay away from the negativity, because there's no checks and balance on the information that folks put out, and they'll go back, and I know folks have asked me about giving them advice for running, and I say, well, just make sure you got a tough skin, and you don't have skeletons in your closet, because between the news media and your opponents, they're going to be digging into all your
Mm-hmm.
background.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be trying to find any kind of thing they can for stories. So you really have to be vigilant. You have to be tough, and you've got to keep things clean as much as possible. But like Colonel said, sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
I always personally thought that, if you know you're running for something and you have something in your past like bankruptcies or judgments or even some things a little more serious, you can always get out in front of it, and it's either going to stick or not. It's better for you coming out, saying it, than later on, halfway through your campaign, it comes out, you know.
You
Right.
know,
And,
and
and
Don,
you know before you run, what you have done, what's in your past, and if you know anything about politics, you know how it works. Somebody's gonna find it,
Yes.
and use it against you. So I always thought, myself, if I was advising somebody, that was going to run, if you have something like that, you address it first, get out in front of it, because just like the national scene, and Ray, you mentioned about the negative ads out of desperation. Yeah, most informed voters can see right through that, but
Yeah.
people that are not, gonna see those ads for their face value, and they're gonna believe it. And that kind of thing has been proven on the national scene. Throw the lies out there enough, and people are gonna believe it.
Right. They don't know. They don't know any better because they don't keep up. They don't read. They don't pay attention. To history and events and things. So they're gullible. That's what happens. Even in the civic organizations, folks, especially the seniors, they don't know who to believe or what to believe, and so they come out for information, and that's what they do. You can't get them, necessarily involved because at this point too, they physically aren't able to do the things they could when they were younger, but they're looking for information because they are hungry and they know that they want to do the right thing. So they develop confidence in some of the sources that they find that credible.
Well,
And you mentioned something about families and voting and things like that. We have this thing, especially in the Black community, where we have legacies. In the Divine Nine, if you're a legacy, they push that so much in their families. If I'm a Kappa or something like that,
Right.
your kids are a legacy, and they're gonna push that. If you are going to a HBCU, you're a legacy, and you're gonna push that as far as with your kids. So why can't your kids be voting legacies? If you voted all your life, why can't you make sure you pass that kind of activity down to your kids as a legacy? And you don't see as much of that anymore. You see some of the older people voting, and it's not being passed down. Their grandkids are not voting like we did. It was like an automatic thing. Our parents did it. They took us to the polls before we could vote. So we could see the process. And then when we got old enough, if we were still in that house, it was like mandatory. And then after that, it was something that was instilled in you. It's something that you knew you figured you had to do because you were more aware of your surroundings and what was going on and realized how important the vote was. But if it wasn't for that jump start coming from the family, in most cases, we wouldn't be as involved as we are. I don't think.
There's a wonderful program called Kids Vote, and it involves bringing your children to the polls, and they're actually activity centers for the children. So they go through motions of voting. And I think that is a wonderful starter.
You know what? We go back to voter education. And Slim, you talked about if you were going to run and if they would dig up information, negative information, and actually come out and just blatantly, the new thing is just, if you don't even have negative stuff in your history, make up stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make up stuff.
As a veteran, I believe in nuclear deterrence. Now, if you go after me with the lies and go after all this stuff that I see that these folks are putting out, a Republican Party are putting out against their Democratic opponents, I believe that you've caused nuclear war. And I would tell my opponent, the first time I see an ad from you or any of your compadres with this stuff out there, I am going nuclear. And I'd have my own budget set up and these third party people, and says to turn them loose on you because I will do to you what you do to me. And they have not seen what I will do to you. And you have them scared. And you would have them, you do that one time and you'd end this stuff.
Well, the strategy
I would
is
bring everybody into
the
it.
strategy
The whole
is to have
family would be destroyed.
the strategy is to have a paragraph, start out the paragraph with some truth, and then the body of the paragraph, fill it with lies, and then end the paragraph with a little bit of truth. So when they look into, the ad, the beginning, the truth, they'll find that. and say, okay, well, what he's saying, but in between, in that body, they done threw out a whole lot of stuff, that's not true or misleading. That it's going to be a part of that effective campaign as well. So that's
They
how
would
that
be,
works.
if I'm running, they would be scared of me because I would go after
I'm
their
scared of you right now.
spouses,
Me,
their
me,
families,
me,
their
me
kids, their
too.
grandkids, their mama, daddy. I would have them move out of this state by the time I'm doing that. I would chase them down 95 or 64 till they got out of here. They would be scared of me. I wouldn't
He,
put up with it.
he's
And
going.
that's
You
the way
going,
you run a campaign.
Colonel. You going. You going to war? I tell you, you definitely a veteran. I don't know how
Yeah,
many wars you
politics is
fought in.
war. It is
Yeah.
war.
Well, it's definitely war this time,
Yeah,
and
it's war.
probably
When they
every
cross the
time.
line, and what I said earlier, when they cross the line, the first time you cross the line, it is war. It is all out war. I am going to destroy you.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
But you,
think
We do
some
that
people
quick,
have.
we good.
I think some people, the Democratic and the doctrine, and some people that's been around for a long time look at that as, when you come back negatively, it could be effective or it could hurt you. Do you want to take that chance? Because some people say, well, here they go back and forth, and what's the issues? So it might help, and then it might hurt you. So, and some of the old guards don't want to take that chance.
yeah.
I'm one that I ain't turning my cheek
Mhm.
to let you hit me in the other cheek. No,
Yeah,
I'm gonna lay you down. I've
yeah.
always believed it. An eye for an eye.
So,
Well,
how do you all feel? I think most of us in our circles, think the same way. But have you been around other people and talking to other people and get a feel of, we've talked about, and get a feel of how people are actually. We know a lot of people are uninformed, but how do you all actually feel about this election tomorrow? I mean, do you feel confident? Because it's down to the point where it's just a few different people, like three candidates can change the complexion of the Senate, and vice versa. The same thing with
With
the
the house.
House. It's just a few votes. I mean, a few candidates, or changes one way or another that can change the whole complexion. It doesn't have to be a lot. And that one person that said I'm not going to vote could make a difference. So how do you all feel? Do you feel comfortable that people will come through, that the Democratic Party will come through,
I'm
at
not feeling
least
good about it.
keep it the way it is now, because, or will, how do you feel? That's.
well. Let me say, James. Looking at past primary and looking at past elections, um, it's just always tough to call. I don't feel good about any of the elections because people just aren't voting, especially African American people aren't voting like they should,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the biggest issue in my mind every time. And it's like excuse my English, a crapshoot, because the turnout dictates it, and you have a sometimes 10, 15, 20% of the electric comes out to vote, for everybody. And they just don't get it. And it can be very frustrating. And and getting back a little to the dirty politics, sometimes and candidates will communicate with each other and say let's keep it clean, or let's not do this or do that. They will actually talk with one another,
Mm-hmm.
but then somebody in somebody's camp violates it, and then it's Katie bar the door. But as back to your question, you know it's just so hard to call each time, and it's just so dismal. There's so many people being pulled in so many different directions. They aren't informed. They don't care for all kinds of reasons, and it's just a sign of the times and that we're in. And I don't get me wrong, but it's gonna get worse before it gets better. You
Mm-hmm.
know, with the direction that this society is moving, with all of the mass killings and the things that's happening, and the racism, it is really, ramped up around the world. So to answer your question, in my opinion, I never feel good about any of these elections because I kind of know, what's happening, and I keep up, and I know, and I listen to people, and when you started negative stuff, it does more to turn people off, and people say, well, that's why I don't vote. That's why I don't get involved because they all crooks, they all crazy, and it's hard to argue against a lot of that.
Yeah. And Lee, I want to hear from you because you're around younger people more than anybody else on this feed. What are you hearing from the younger people?
They are not informed. They are not looking to vote. Um, and that's the community in which we need to invest time in, because they are not going to these meetings. They're not going to the Civic League meetings, and they're not paying attention as to what's going on. They don't realize what's at stake when you don't vote. They don't have a clue, and they feel as though once again that their vote is unnecessary. It is not going to make a difference. So I'm thinking that when we begin talking about voter education, the place we need to start is with the younger people, to encourage them, to engage them, to get them involved in the political process. There's not a lot being done really to reach out to them, to bring them into the fold. And so they're not particularly interested in participating. And some young people I felt was very informed. I was really surprised when I talked to them. Um, they didn't know what candidates were running. Um, they were just not interested. And I don't know what we have to do in order to get the young people involved and engaged in the local area. I don't know what they're doing in other areas, but we haven't done enough to engage young people here in this area.
Well,
I,
one,
you
we
know,
start too late too. We don't educate like one. We
yeah,
don't do the voter education, and we wait till the end
You got to
when the,
start early.
you have to start early. Matter of
Got to
yeah,
fact,
start
if
early.
yeah, right after this election,
Mm-hmm.
they won't be up for 4 years. Uh, at year three, 3 years out, I would start my election right then and start
Mm-hmm.
beating down my opponent. My opponent would, knowing who I am, my opponent would not run. They'd announce 3 years out at a 4 year term, I can't run against him because they would be scared of me.
Yeah.
yeah.
But you know what?
And Leah, what you were saying about going, you have to go to where the young folks are, because traditionally they don't come to, they haven't been coming to Civic League meetings,
Mm-mm.
as long as I can remember. We kind of did, but I think we were in our twenties, late 20s and 30s when we started getting involved. Some exceptions to the rule. There's always exceptions to the rule, but even the college campuses, people that have kids that are in college but still registered here, do they encourage their kids to at least come home and vote, or either send in those ballots? Because
I
I
don't
remember
know.
my dad when I was in school. Of course, I was in Richmond, so I could come down. He made sure I came down on election day to vote, even though I was away. You know, are we doing enough to even reach the young folks? If you got to go on TikTok, go on TikTok.
You got to go to where
Whatever
they
you have to
are.
do.
You have to go to you have to go to the source for them.
Well, you
You
know what?
know, and
Yeah.
and you have to engage people who they will listen to, and get those individuals to be the ones to come out and share with them the importance of voting. We
Of
were blessed. We were
other
blessed.
young folks.
Well, yeah, we were blessed, James, because I mean, I started when I was 17. Lucy Overton just poured into us the importance of being involved in voting and things of that nature. So I've been out here since I was 17, engaged in the political process. But there's nothing to bring interest to these young kids now. You know, I I just look at them and I hear them talking, and at least when Dolores Overton was in the registrar's office, she went to the high schools and did voter registration in the high schools, and talked to the young people about voting. We got to get back to getting into the high schools. The registrar's office need to be in the high school, registering voters, We need to be in the high schools talking to these young people about the importance of voting. You got to start with them, and hopefully it'll work its way up. You can't wait until the election time to go in and start talking to them. You need to do it now, and you need to be on a constant basis, um, with us engaging them and letting them know that their vote count and that their value. Right now they don't see any value in participating. They
And
regard
it's most
anyway.
and it's mostly going to affect them, more than
Exactly.
us.
Exactly.
We not, it's going to affect their future. That's the
That is
point you
very
have to
true.
get across.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? When you talk about their future, we need to start and educate them as one and what is the importance of voting, but how does it affect you now and in the future? And you
Exactly.
have to connect it to their daily lives. And I took a friend of mine over to social services in Portsmouth, and what and gave him a ride up there. And in that first entry area, in that little common area there, it was packed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll bet you, I should have done it. How many people vote? But it looked like I bet you only a handful of those folks are going to be voters or going to go to the polls. But everybody in that hallway and that auditor in that conference room should be at the polls because they are seeking the same services that somebody is taken away from them because they did not vote. They
Exactly.
have to understand what the effects is.
That's
You
so
know,
true.
Absolutely. It's a constant struggle, and we can't give up because there's some spark, there's some person, there's some individual that can reach them, and it's just a constant thing that you constantly have to work on because, as I said earlier, there's so many different things that's pulling them apart, especially those with children and even adults with grandkids. Everybody's in the sports, and now these travel teams, they're riding all up and down the East Coast, playing football and things like that. My daughter's team, they're preparing to go to Florida already, to play. So it's just something that we all need to come together somehow and to put together some kind of a program. We can't always wait, for the register, or we always can't wait, for certain organizations. We sometimes have to, do things ourselves and try to reach them. What impresses them a lot of times is some young elected official, somebody that has been successful. They can reach them easier than some of the older ones. But as Leah said, and James as well, all of us have been mentored, and we've come up, at our very young ages since high school, and we've been involved. But it took, somebody, and Leah called, the one famous person that in my life that got me involved is Miss Lucy Overton, and
Mm-hmm.
told me told me way back that if you listen, I'm gonna help you and show you how to do this and do that. And I listened. I had a lot of mentors back in the day, from Senator Lucas to Ken Melvin. I mean, you name them. Um, I can name a lot more that constantly, were inviting me and pushing me, but they had to see that interest in you. So we just gotta, Leah, we just gotta find them. We gotta identify, some of these young people and pull them out and train them and educate them and kind of send them after their peers because they listen to one another, a lot more than they listen to, some of us quote old heads. So it's just a constant thing, and we can't give up because it's a heart thing, it's a mind thing, it's a personal thing that has to reach them, and there has to be a trigger, and you just got to find that trigger.
And they have to, if we get the young people, and especially if it's a young elected officials, they have to come with the right message, and they can come with their own message as well. But you have to have a basis, come with the right message. We might have some young elected officials we might not want talking to young
Yeah,
people,
yeah, that's
you
true.
know, and but they have to have the right message, and a lot of them disagree. Sometimes you have to be groomed. It's not taking away your opinions or your thoughts or your process, or the way you approach things, but that grooming, on the basic way to deal with politics in general has
Yeah,
to take place. You can't fight that. We have some young politicians out there that followed that path, and you can see by following that path how they are legislating or how they are approaching the position they have. And you can see the ones that didn't follow that or fought against that. You can see the difference there. So you have to make sure you got the right young people out there with the right message. Or you're going to have a whole flock of people going in a different direction that might not be conducive to what we're, the end goal.
yeah. It's got to be organized and it's got to be methodic. It's got to be strategic. And you're right, because there's a lot of, you know, sheep in wolves' clothing that um, I mean, wolves in sheep clothing, that are lurking, and they're out there for you know, personal gain, and for, the spotlight, and for money, and it is a good form of networking, that a lot of them, have to be taught, just like church. I tell folks there's a lot of purposes and reasons other than, getting saved and becoming, close to God. It's fellowship, because that's what the Lord requires of us. But all of that works into to developing you as a strong adult, a knowledgeable adult. Those areas also are very important in your development, and we just have to get them to see the picture. I'm like you said, James. You're right. You just can't, because a politician has been successful young. You do have to know them, and you do have to know that they have the right message and they have the right heart. And it's just so much riffraff out here now, on all levels, young and old, that folks are, finding out about. There's so much going on behind the scenes, and there's so much going on in the city and around us in the state that you cannot know and keep up and know what's going on unless you have some kind of connection, or unless you keep up, unless you are involved. And if you look at the, even our own city and the state of affairs, it's kind of alarming to me, when I know what I know, because I keep up and I talk to folks that, work down there, that are involved, to council members, and I know legislators on the state, not even in Portsmouth, but across the state of Virginia and the country. Because the times when I spent on the school board and city council, I applied myself, and I went to the national conventions, which was very crucial to your development, and that's what we have to instill in folks, that you got to get out of Portsmouth. You got to learn.
Mm-hmm.
There's folks that have never been out of, Portsmouth. I mean, young folks, and it's just sad commentary to the way things have evolved. But it's a fight and it's a struggle, and we have to. It's like the colonel's talking. It's a war, and we got to fight for them. Just like we got to fight to keep the riffraff out. We got to fight for their protection, for their knowledge, for their common sense.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Yeah,
let,
all
let
our
me,
representatives should take a trip to Wisconsin and see how they do it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you know what? Here's another piece is that, we're talking about voter education, and it has to start young.
yeah,
When you talk to the parents and the kids, are out in all these summer leagues, and we keep crying and having all these marches about gun violence. And then we look at and we tell the parents and these kids, the reason we don't have for example, we don't have a vibrant summer program for your kids to go to, either playing basketball or going to the library, whatever kind of program in the summer, is because your parents somebody did not go to vote, and then in the for city council, and that person put budget cuts in there, and so that's why and they cut out summer programs for you. That's why you have to go sell these T-shirts or stand on the corner and get some money to buy some shoes or whatever because of the budget cuts. That affected you. And I'll go back to Section 8 housing, and I own rental property, and the tenant would always holler about why their cost share kept going up, because there were changes in the system to make them pay more money. Then I asked them, did you go out and vote? And they say no. And say, that is your fault. That is because you allowed the same people in here that's going to make the budget cuts. That means they are putting you out. And now that you can't pay your cost shares, I have to put you out.
Yeah, I think I see Robert Earls. I think that's Reverend Robert Earls is making a comment that we've been talking about generally, that people are just disgusted with the political climate on the national level and local level, city council infighting, and even if something is being done, all they see is the infighting or some things that are happening in the public like that. So that has to change. But as we wind down, the election is tomorrow, and hopefully we can either keep the Senate and gain the House of Representatives, or whichever way it goes. The day after the election, that's when you start your strategy again. You don't,
Yes.
If we're victorious in getting both houses, that's not the time. You can celebrate for a day or two, but that's not the time to sit on your laws until the beginning of the
Yes.
year. Strategy should start right after, win or lose, and with the things that we're talking about is educating our young folks, educating our older folks, because that is the block that really votes. And we can't have them going to the polls uneducated. So, that strategy has to start right after the election. So as we wind down, everybody have a chance to comment on that, what we need to do after the election, because we're at the point now, people are either going to go to the polls tomorrow, or they've already been, they're going to vote educated, it's going to be what it is, after tomorrow night. So what are we going to do, or what should we be doing right after the election from each one of you?
Well, I'll start off first. For those who do go to the polls and exercise their right to vote, I'd like to thank you for being a part of and sustaining and keeping this democracy in strong. For those who do not go to the polls, that sit home, and if they do go out, they're going to get your nails done or your hair done or whatever, they find some excuse not to go to the polls. Then I say to you, you deserve everything that you're going to get in the future. Negative what's going to happen. So don't complain. Just take it. But thank you for those who do go out and vote, because you strengthened America. The others, you're anti-American. I can't go any further. I can't even describe you now if you didn't vote. And that may be harsh. Some may say that's harsh and cruel, but that's the way I think about it.
Sometimes you have to take that approach, Colonel,
Yep.
in order to reach you.
And I rest my case. Go out and vote, please.
Mark?
So one thing that concerns me is that Virginia has this sort of contrapuntal history. We tend in the Commonwealth to go opposite the national results, and so when when the Democrats hold the executive branch at the national level, we saw how we lost the state house. And right now, at the national level, in terms of the legislatures, uh, it's 1-1. I don't know how we go opposite that. Do we end up with a Democratic House and a Republican Senate in Virginia? I would like to think that here's one of the positives I've seen. I have seen more competition in this election cycle, because in the past, there were a lot of seats that went unchallenged, regardless of who the incumbent was. People had already conceded the outcome. I'm not seeing that here to the extent that it's been in the past. So if you don't run, you can't win. And I am hopeful that there are enough people paying attention and enough people who feel they have a personal stake in the outcome, especially women, that we will see a blue change in both houses. So I'm hoping. And I will be there tomorrow with my neighbors casting my ballot to try to make that come true.
Hey, Leah?
Well, the nation is watching Virginia. I hope that we show them the right way. I'm hoping that each of you who have not already voted, that you will go out and you will vote. Not only will you vote, but you're going to take your neighbors, your friends, your family members, make sure that everyone gets out there and cast their votes. As we stated before, there's been an uptick in the number of Republicans who have already voted. So now it is your chance. It is your chance to prove to the nation that Virginia can do the right thing. We don't want to move in that direction in which that former president has taken us. And if you don't vote, you are saying you can deny us our history. If you don't vote, you're saying you can deny me as a woman the right to make the choice for my body. Women were given the right to vote in 1920. It took us a long time to get here. Women, get out there. You have been the persons who've taken the Democratic Party over time and time again, especially African American women. Let's get out there. Let's vote. Let's vote. Let's vote, and take everybody you can put your hands on and ask them if they will go and vote as well. So I wish you all to have a great election day. It's going to be a beautiful day tomorrow. No excuse, no rain, no snow. It's
No
going to be
cold?
no cold. It's going to be a bright, sunny day. Come out and vote on tomorrow. And there's one thing I want to say before we leave. If there's ever a person who should give a master class on community organizing, it's Nadarius Clark. We need to utilize the talents that he has brought to the stage. He is a master community organizer, and we need to utilize his services more often in how to engage the community. And I wish him well on tomorrow as well. But the main thing is people just get out and vote on tomorrow.
Yeah, and that was something that he did leading up to him actually running. So he didn't just jump out there and run because he could run. He prepared, and which is the point I was just trying to make. Sometimes you have to prepare for being a candidate
Exactly.
and not just say, "Well, I'm young, so
Uh-huh.
I think I should run." But
Yes.
go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, and it goes back to what's been already said. We just have to organize, and we have to strategize, and we have to come together with the right people to put them out in front of various groups to kind of wake them up or shake them up or to get their attention. And like the one person, the various Clark that you mentioned, he's a perfect example of someone that, you know, a lot of us didn't really know, but the way he presented himself and the way he went about it, it is a classic example of how we need to impress and how we need to press young folks to be. And that's what it's all about. You know, we just have to come together as a people and as a city, as a community, to try to impress on one another, to get involved and to pay attention and to listen, because a lot of folks that really, and folks will say, well, you know, why this person won't run, why that person won't run, and it's because they really don't have the stomach, the skin, and the patience for a lot of the things that you have to put up with in today's politics. You know, you learn people when you spend time around them. They can put there are politicians that are gifted with gift the gab. They can, you know, they can talk, you know, they know how to motivate, but you know, when the rubber meets the road is what do you do when you get in place, and how do you interact not only with, you know, people of your color but all people, and that's something else that, you know, we have to see differently. We are all in this, you know, black, white, Mexican, Filipino, all colors. We're in this all together, and we've got to see it that way. And we can't isolate. We can't, you know, hold grudges. We can't you know, just look at people, you know, with a jealous, envious type eye because maybe they don't agree with you, or you know, we just have to be look on the lookout for those sleepers that are out there, and they can make a difference. And so we have to find them, and we have to come together and organize, and we've got to do it in a different fashion than we've been doing it in the past, because it's not been working.
Well, I want to thank all the hosts and the guests for coming on today. And I want people to remember that it was the Democrats that expanded the early voting time. And as Leah mentioned, that a lot of Republicans have taken advantage of that and are voting early. And it would be a shame. Hopefully, we match that or even did
Surpass.
more than them. It would be a
Yeah.
shame for something that Democrats did to help us, and the Republicans took advantage of it more than we did. So that's to be seen. But hopefully, if you haven't gotten out there to vote, make sure you could get out there tomorrow. You got from 6 to 7, you know, to do it. You got a nice day, as Leah said. And, you know, if you're at work, you know, just take that little break on your lunch break, eat while you're driving in the car, or whatever you have to do. It shouldn't be long lines because a lot of people voted early, hopefully, in most precincts. So make sure you get out there and do your thing. And whatever the results are, like we mentioned, let's start planning, strategizing right after the election, because next year we got local elections, you know, school board, city council, and we have to be prepared for that. So,
And presidential.
and presidential.
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, and vote the whole ticket. But anyway, we'll get to that when that comes up. But make sure you get out there tomorrow and try to make sure we keep the Senate, gain the House, and get some legislation done. You know, some common sense legislation.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everybody. Thanks a lot. We appreciate you. Be aware, be informed, and most of all, be involved. And we'll see you next time. Take care. We'll see
Vote,
you Thursday.
vote, vote,
Vote,
vote
vote,
tomorrow.
vote.
Vote.
Yes. And don't forget to join us Thursday as we are going to be talking about education and politics. And we're going to have Dr. Fairfax on, Dr. Marie Shepard, and Dr. Ernestine Duncan, and the regular host. So that should be an interesting conversation so we can further talk about how the politics affects our education or vice versa. Take care. We'll see you next time.
Take care.